Welcome back to our channel, your ultimate source for thrilling Genoa City updates. Today is a beautiful day, but the skies over our favorite drama are darker than ever. Grab a cup of coffee and settle in, because these Young and the Restless spoilers will leave you absolutely breathless. Let us explore the devastating storm that is about to hit the Newman family. The silence of the Newman ranch is violently shattered by the shrill ring of a telephone. Nikki Newman, who has spent weeks projecting an image of unshakable strength, answers the call that will forever change her life. On the other end is a frantic Sharon Rosales, her voice cracking as she delivers apocalyptic news. Nick Newman, the beloved son who tried to be the moral anchor of a flawed dynasty, has suffered a catastrophic drug overdose at a seedy motel. His life hangs by the thinnest of threads as paramedics fight to keep his heart beating. The magnitude of this shocking event instantly paralyzes Genoa City, sending seismic shockwaves through the Newman Empire. How could the golden boy fall so far into the abyss? And who is truly responsible for this tragedy? Driven by sheer maternal panic, Nikki rushes to Genoa City Memorial Hospital, the world blurring as she navigates the sterile, blindingly white corridors. The heavy scent of antiseptic and the chilling beeping of medical machinery assault her senses, amplifying the nightmare. Reaching the intensive care unit, the sight before her stops her heart. Nick lies motionless, his vibrant face pale, surrounded by a chaotic web of tubes and life support machines. The doctors work with grim determination, monitoring the catastrophic damage inflicted by the lethal cocktail of narcotics he consumed. Nikki presses her trembling hands against the cold glass, her breath catching as she watches her child fight a losing battle. Will the medical team perform a miracle? Or is the Newman family facing their most agonizing loss? Outside the glass doors, the impenetrable facade of the powerful Newman matriarch crumbles, giving way to the raw vulnerability of a terrified mother. Nikki falls into an abyss of profound regret, her mind racing through decades of memories and silent cries for help drowned out by corporate warfare. She realizes with horrifying clarity that Nick's descent into addiction was a slow suffocation under the crushing weight of his family's expectations. He tried to escape the toxicity, hiding in that dismal motel, only to find himself trapped in a deadly spiral. The crushing guilt threatens to suffocate Nikki as she questions every parenting decision and every time she looked the other way. Can a mother's desperate prayers pull a child back from the brink, or is it already too late for redemption? As the initial shock morphs into searing fury, Nikki's grief finds a devastating target, Victor Newman. Her blood boils, reflecting on Victor's recent obsessions, his relentless pursuit of power, and his newly discovered betrayal involving a secret child. While Victor was busy playing God and hiding a massive scandal that threatens their marriage, his legitimate son was bleeding out in the shadows. Nikki places the blame squarely on Victor's shoulders, realizing that his constant power games and emotional neglect created the vacuum Nick tried to fill with narcotics. Victor's refusal to see his children as anything other than pawns has resulted in a casualty that cannot be fixed with a hostile takeover. Will Victor's insatiable hunger for control ultimately cost him the life of his own flesh and blood? The psychological toll of bearing the Newman name is a curse Nikki is only now fully comprehending as she watches her son cling to life. For years, Nick attempted to carve out his own identity, striving to be the moral compass in a family entrenched in ruthlessness and dark conspiracies. However, the oppressive shadow of his father has always loomed large, a suffocating force punishing any perceived weakness. Nikki realizes that the toxic environment of the Newman dynasty drove Nick to seek solace in the numbing embrace of addiction. The family's legacy is built on a foundation of lies and broken spirits, and Nick is paying the ultimate price for sins he did not commit. Is it possible to survive the crushing gravity of the Newman Empire, or are Victor's children destined to be destroyed by their own name? Amidst the suffocating despair and terrifying uncertainty of Nick's survival, a familiar, insidious demon whispers in Nikki's ear. The overwhelming agony and boiling resentment toward Victor trigger a massive, nearly uncontrollable urge to drink. The phantom taste of vodka burns in her throat, a seductive promise of temporary numbness in a world that has suddenly become too painful to endure. Nikki grips the edge of a hospital chair, battling the physiological cravings that threaten to drag her back into the abyss of severe alcoholism. She knows taking a single sip would be a catastrophic surrender and a tragic mirror to her son's current state. Yet, the the temptation to escape the agonizing reality of the ICU is stronger than ever. Will Nikki find the inner fortitude to stay sober, or will she plunge into addiction alongside her son? Despite her soul shattering into a million pieces, Nikki Newman is a survivor who has spent decades perfecting the art of the masquerade. Drawing on a frightening well of stoicism, she wipes the tears from her cheeks and violently forces her trembling hands to steady. She straightens her posture, lifts her chin, and dons the impenetrable mask of the untouchable Newman Queen. Nikki is acutely aware that the hospital corridors are filled with prying eyes who would relish the sight of her breaking down. She refuses to let the public see the extent of her psychological bleeding. She projects an aura of absolute command, demanding updates from the medical staff with a voice that betrays none of her internal terror. How long can this fragile illusion last before the dam breaks and the truth of her devastation drowns her entirely? As Nikki paces the sterile hallways, desperately trying to maintain her composure, she unexpectedly crosses paths with a ghost from her bitter past, Diane Jenkins Abbott. The historical tension between the two women crackles in the air, a toxic history of rivalry and mutual hatred spanning decades. Diane, currently reeling from the apocalyptic scandal involving Jack Abbott's exposed historical crimes, is dealing with her own shattered reality. For a fleeting moment, the two matriarchs lock eyes, their shared exhaustion bridging the vast chasm of their enmity. Will Diane use this moment of profound weakness to strike a verbal blow, mocking the mighty Newmans in their hour of tragedy? Or will a rare moment of maternal empathy emerge, recognizing that the prospect of losing a child transcends all hatred? What happens when two formidable women collide at their absolute lowest points? The heavy atmosphere of the hospital waiting area shifts drastically with the sudden arrival of Jack Abbott. Jack, recently disgraced after Billy exposed his darkest corporate secrets, is intimately familiar with the catastrophic fallout of family betrayal. Despite his own profound trauma and the chaos engulfing Abbott Cosmetics, Jack's historical connection to Nikki draws him to her side in her moment of desperate need. As he approaches, Jack's perceptive eyes immediately cut through Nikki's rigid posture and her carefully constructed mask of invulnerability. He sees the microscopic tremors in her hands and the silent scream trapped in her throat. Jack knows Nikki better than almost anyone, and he recognizes the terrifying signs of a soul standing on the precipice of destruction. Will Jack's unexpected presence provide the emotional anchor Nikki desperately needs, or will it complicate an explosive situation? Without hesitation, Jack gently bridges the physical and emotional distance, his voice a low, comforting murmur amidst the clinical chaos. He gently confronts Nikki, his eyes filled with a deep, mournful understanding, urging her to drop the exhausting act of the fearless matriarch. Jack begs her to be honest, not just about the terrifying reality of Nick's critical condition, but about the suffocating turmoil within her marriage and her precarious grip on sobriety. He knows that bottling up this level of catastrophic pain is a guaranteed recipe for a severe relapse, and he pleads with her to let him share the unbearable burden. Nikki's defenses waver under the weight of his genuine compassion, the temptation to finally collapse into the arms of someone who truly understands proving almost irresistible. Will Nikki surrender her pride and confess the dark truths, or will she push Jack away to maintain the illusion of invincibility? However, the tender, vulnerable moment between Jack and Nikki is fraught with an immense, looming danger, the terrifying wrath of Victor Newman. Victor's jealousy regarding Jack Abbott is legendary, a deeply ingrained hatred that has sparked decades of ruthless warfare. If Victor, currently consumed by his own dark secrets and the fight to manage the fallout of his hidden child, discovers Jack comforting his wife, the consequences would be biblical. Victor views any reliance on Jack as a profound personal betrayal, an unforgivable insult to his role as the absolute protector of his family. The mere sight of Jack's hand resting consolingly on Nikki's shoulder could ignite an explosion of possessive rage that would shatter whatever fragile peace remains. Will Victor's toxic possessiveness destroy Nikki's only source of genuine comfort, plunging the family into a violent confrontation outside the ICU? Meanwhile, behind the heavy doors of the ICU, the battle for Nick Newman's life reaches a terrifying critical juncture. The rhythmic, agonizingly slow beeping of the heart monitor is the only sound in the room as a team of specialists fights to reverse the catastrophic damage caused by the massive overdose. The lethal cocktail he ingested with Marie Kirkland has pushed his body to the absolute limit, shutting down his organs and plunging him into a deep, unresponsive coma. Every passing second is an agonizing eternity for the family waiting outside, a brutal reminder of the fragility of human life, despite all their wealth and power. The doctors utilize every advanced medical intervention available, fighting an invisible enemy that threatens to claim the Newman heir permanently. Even if Nick miraculously opens his eyes, the psychological demons will still be waiting. Will Nick find the subconscious strength to fight his way back to the light? As the long, harrowing night bleeds into a bleak, unforgiving morning, the entire Newman family finds themselves standing at the ultimate crossroads. Nikki remains frozen at the precipice, her soul violently torn between the desperate need to stay strong for her dying son and the seductive whisper of the liquor bottle. The walls of the hospital seem to close in, echoing with the ghosts of past mistakes, broken relationships, and the dark conspiracies that have poisoned their bloodline. Victor's empire, built on a foundation of ruthless manipulation, is crumbling under the weight of its own toxic legacy, proving that no amount of money can buy salvation. As Jack Abbott stands as a silent sentinel of support, and the doctors deliver their final grim prognosis, Genoa City holds its collective breath. Will Nikki Newman survive this apocalyptic emotional storm with her sobriety intact? Or is the mighty Newman dynasty finally facing absolute destruction?